Imagine getting up every day full of energy as if you were in your 20s again. What would that be like? What would it be worth to you? What is your health worth to you? Think about it. Your health isn't everything, but without it, everything else is nothing. And yet, too many of us are taking it for granted until something goes wrong. And no one wakes up hoping to be diagnosed with a disease or chronic illness. And yet, we've never been taught how to be proactive in our health through our school or public health. As a registered health coach and integrative health practitioner, I believe it's time this information is made available to everyone. Combining new knowledge around your health and the ability to do my functional medicine lab tests in the comfort of your own home will allow you to optimize your health for today and all your tomorrows. Don't wait for your wake-up call. Welcome back to another episode of the Don't Wait for Your Wake-Up Call podcast. I am your host, Melissa Deely, and I am so excited today to have with you my new friend, Tess Masters. We've got to know each other over the last couple months, and you're going to love her, and I'm so excited for you to be here, Tess.
Thank you for having me. Yes, we've had some great conversations in the last couple of months, haven't we?
We have, and a lot of similarities in our youth and our background and in the work that we do today. And so let me introduce you to the audience here. Tess is an actor, presenter, coach, speaker, podcaster, cook, and author of The Blender Girl Smoothies, and The Perfect Blend, published by Penguin Random House. You can find hundreds of easy recipes at theblendergirl.com. And through the Decadent Detox and Skinny60 health programs, Tess and her team of dietitians have helped over 30,000 people get healthy using science-based food and lifestyle strategies. The good, better, or best, not perfect philosophy of the programs encourages participants to empower themselves in all parts of their lives to find a balance of self-care and fun. And I love that because we're never going to be perfect. So let's just get a little bit better every single day. So you didn't start there, Tess. I love to dive into people's backgrounds and just have you share your story as to where you got started and how you came into this path of health and wellness and helping so many people in their health journey.
Yeah. So, I, like a lot of people, grew up on a pretty conventional meat and three veg diet. My mum cooked a lot of healthy food at home. We didn't eat a lot of processed or foods or takeout or anything like that. But, it was a pretty standard diet. And I really enjoyed very good health until I hit about 13 years old and I was just plagued with debilitating lethargy. I was just so tired and I just couldn't really function in my life. I couldn't think clearly. I was very emotional. I just wanted to lie down and sleep all the time. And so I was finally diagnosed with Epstein-Barr virus. And gosh, this is, over 35 years ago now. More than that, actually. I'm doing the maths in my head about my age. But anyway, and, I'm in my 50s now. And, back then, going to a naturopath was considered pretty hippy-dippy, and out of the mainstream.
And
But, exactly. And my regular doctor, just said, oh, well, you just have to sleep. And my mum said, oh, no. We are being more proactive than that. We are going to find some solutions and we are getting you to feel better. Kind of like a mother like you, Melissa.
Yay, Mum.
Right? Exactly. Like I'm going to find solutions. And I'm so grateful that she did because we went to this amazing naturopath and he suggested that I give up gluten, dairy, sugar, and some other trigger foods that would really help my gut health and digestion, really improve my protein intake, the quality of the foods that I was eating, get more strategic as opposed to just healthy eating. And I'm not a celiac, I'm not lactose intolerant, but I do, I did present with non-celiac gluten sensitivity back then, before it was a term, and I just felt dramatically better. And so that was really the impetus into a revolution into the way that I ate and really embracing what we know now, that food really is medicine and that I have the power to control how I feel in my body.
Yes, it's a choice.
Yeah.
What you put into your body and knowing
Yeah.
how different foods make you feel, you get to choose whether I do want to eat this now and I don't care how I feel on Sunday when I'm just going to lie around on the couch and watch Christmas movies or something.
Exactly.
I
it
have
really taught
something really
me,
important that I need to do, and I don't want to feel like that, so I'm not going to eat it. And I have
yes.
a question for you, and I don't know if you remember because it was many years ago, and we won't say how many. However, how long did it take you to start feeling better?
Oh, it was a matter of days.
Yeah,
It
I
wasn't even
figured.
weeks.
I
Yeah.
figured because our body is so amazing at healing when we create the environment for it to be able to do so. And you taking out those foods that it was struggling with created the environment for it to start healing.
Yeah, and more importantly, it wasn't just what I took away, it was what I added. And I
Mm,
think that that's a really important differentiating point,
yeah,
that we often focus on what we're taking away as opposed to the abundance that we are bringing in. So I was adding more fermented foods to take care of my gut health. I was being more strategic with the way that I combined foods. I was getting in more variety. I was taking care of my stress and my sleep and my exercise and my movement, and just being a lot more conscious and mindful. It really taught me at a very young age, to your point earlier, just listening to my body and
mhm,
giving myself permission to create the test plan, the bio individual plan that was right for my body as a teenager.
yeah,
And then as I moved through my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, and now into my 50s, those needs change, even though the basic nutrition parameters remain the
correct.
same,
Yeah,
and I think that's a really great lesson for all of us.
absolutely. And I wish that was actually taught in our school systems, etc. So
Yes.
that, kids could start learning this at a really young age. And what I also love what you mentioned there was it just wasn't about the food that you added in and took away. There were other lifestyle factors involved as well, such as addressing the stress, the sleep, the exercise, etc. Because it's never one thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that it really is a multi-pronged approach to self-love and self-care. It also got me really into cooking,
Mm,
and cooking as an act of self-love.
right.
That it was something that I wanted to invest time in because it was a gift that I was giving myself in the present and in the future. That I was going to be able to show up as the best version of myself and have energy and be excited about life again. And I think that often too, we view cooking as this kind of arduous, oh God, okay, I got to do it. I got to eat, because it's kind of just going to, make life happen, instead of it being this really beautiful ritual. So I became very, very passionate about making vegetables and plant foods, really delicious, and that kind of really got me on the trajectory of starting the Blender Girl website and writing cookbooks and things.
I love that. And you're right. Fueling yourself is such an act of self care and self love. And when you look at it from that perspective, just the difference in how that food fuels our body is different to when we look at it as a chore, just because of the energy that goes into it and the power of that. And when you care about that, you are going to add in that extra love, that extra time, and those extra ingredients to make a really healthful meal for yourself.
Yeah, the other piece of it too for me is it's gotta be mind-blowingly delicious. Like I make every meal like it's my last meal. And I want to go on a flavorful journey, and I want to go on a textural journey, and I just want to, my delight with every bite kind of thing. So, seeing cooking as really a practice and an art form, it really became for me. It doesn't have to be that for everybody necessarily, but I just became very passionate about the culinary arts, how gifted people are when they can really put these really mind-blowing flavors together. So that just became a real passion.
And now you've done that for others through your different recipe books and your et cetera, et cetera. So people, if you want to make this easy for yourself, you need to get these recipe books. I love it.
I mean,
So
I think that's the key, isn't it? Like to make healthy living sustainable and fun so that we want to keep doing it.
Mhm.
So much of it comes down to how delicious the food is so that we're excited to eat it.
Exactly.
Because let's face it, all those unhealthy things, they're yummy too, right? And we're talking about this balance, right? But I think that it's about what we're doing more often, just like the good, better, best,
Yes.
not perfect. We're not doing everything. It's not possible, right? And we want to have that balance of self-care and fun. But when the healthy food, I think, has to be even more delicious than the so-called
Right.
comfort food, whatever labels we want to use, not to put any judgment on any food we're eating. But I think we need to be really excited about what we're doing.
Absolutely. And we've talked before about the 80-20 rule that we both work with.
Yeah.
80% of the time, if you're feeding your body in a way that fuels it so you can thrive, it will forgive you the 20% of the time where maybe you're not making the best food choices, but you're having fun with family and that's what's being served.
Yes.
And there's a lot of benefit to that as well. However, when you flip it on its head and you're only fueling your body in a healthful way 20% of the time, that's when your body struggles to give you the energy that you're demanding of it as you go through life. So that 80-20 rule is a beautiful rule. And I love
Yeah,
how you
I really love it too. We really bonded over that, didn't we? I mean, we're just aiming to make the next better choice to your point earlier, and this is what we teach people in our programs is that so many of our memories are centered around food and how it
yes,
brings us together with the people that we love. And so food is one of the great pleasures of life. It just has to be joyful. So if we're obsessing about that 80-20 and obsessing about only being healthy or that we're beating ourselves up that we just didn't do this or we didn't do that, we're just missing being present with life. And I think that, we want it all to be joyful. And I think that if we're laser focused on the good or the bad or putting it into columns, I think that that's another form of disordered eating.
yeah,
Where we're not holding our experiences in balance.
yeah,
And so, that's a large part of my work, and I know it is of yours as well, is just helping people find that balance. And the balance gets negotiated every day, depending on what we're
exactly.
doing and what life presents us with, right? We're not chasing these static goals. So even though, yeah, 80-20 is a great sort of guide, and it's a good thing that we use as a starting point, we get to be flexible within that and give ourselves permission to navigate that, however that looks and what that might feel like.
Yes, love it. Love it. We are so in alignment there.
Yeah.
Now, from finding this passion for creating these delicious meals and bringing in all the healthy foods and the texture and all of that and the flavor, keep going with your story as to how you came to be known as the Blender Girl and creating all of these incredible smoothie recipes.
Yeah. So, I took a million cooking classes. If I love something, I want to be really, really good at it, and I want to learn everything I can. And I love being in class about anything and learning from somebody who's really mastered something or is really passionate about something. And, we've all got something to teach. That old adage of
Yes.
sometimes the best teacher for a third grader is a fourth grader, right? So it's just that thing of, I really, really studied, spent clocked in a lot of hours on it. And then, I was living in Australia, then I was living in Singapore, we lived all over the world. And then I married somebody from Springfield, Missouri, and I moved to this kind of smaller city in America. And I wasn't working in the same job that I was before. And so I just had a lot more time to cook, and I wanted to find something that was really going to fulfill me in addition to, doing my voiceovers remotely in my studio and other things I was doing. And my husband at the time, he suggested, why don't you start a food blog? Because I'm going to credit him with that. This is back in, 2008, 2009. And he said, they're going to be really big, And I said, but I'm not a chef. I'm not an expert in this. And he said, well, every time we have someone over, everybody begs for the recipe, You're just basically sharing your journey with food, just like all of these other people. So, I had a little bit of that imposter syndrome in the beginning, which I still suffer from time to time, like we all do. But I thought, okay, and so I just started this website. But I will be honest that I did think about it for a year, and there were so many great websites that I loved to cook from and followed. And I thought, ooh, how can I do something that's just a little bit different? And so I was just sitting there one day and I was looking at my Vitamix, and I was drinking my smoothie and looking at, my homemade moisturizer and my compost and my cleaning products and my, dressings and sauces and all these different things that I was using my blender for. And I went, oh, maybe I could do something centered around that, because I used it, 5 or 6 times a day. I used my blender for so many different things. And so, I really researched what was out there. And at the time, there was really nothing except juices and smoothies, right? And there wasn't anybody really talking about how to really elevate the space and celebrate it beyond that. And I really noticed that juicing and blending was really starting to trend. And so I centered my whole thing around how we can use the blender to facilitate a healthy lifestyle in a multiple prong, approach. And so the Blender Girl was born, right? So at first, it was my mother and my sister and a handful of friends reading it. And then I know, right?
Everybody starts somewhere, right?
Right.
Everybody starts somewhere. So anybody else's story is exactly the same.
Exactly. And I remember getting my first comment. It was like Julia, that website. It's not my mother, it was hilarious. And so because juicing and blending was trending so heavily, and Vitamix, had experienced 200% growth in 4 years, and, people were really starting to use more high-speed blenders. Now, my recipes are tested on all kinds of blenders, from an entry-level blender all the way up to a high-speed blender. So you don't need a high-speed blender necessarily, but that space was largely driven by that ascension, and that greater awareness, moving from chefs just using it to home cooks. And so I was very fortunate that a lot of media outlets and other places noticed my website very quickly. And so that's how I started working with Vitamix, and then became the spokesperson for KitchenAid, and, did a national tour with Williams Sonoma, and, TV shows and all kinds of other things. So I was very fortunate to draft off of that trend and get noticed very quickly. And so that's how the Blender Girl grew into, millions of followers and things like that. So it's been very joyful, and also just to educate people that blenders are not just for smoothies and soups and margaritas. You don't have to coat check your teeth at the door, that we're using it to bring in a flavorful element to all kinds of textured dishes as well. But yes, to your point, I did get known very quickly for my smoothies. We did the Blender Girl, which did contain smoothies, but soups, salads, dressings, all kinds of other recipes. And then we followed it up with the second book, which was just smoothies, because we did a smoothies app. And, it was in the top 3 finalists for best nonfiction app of the year and things like that. So it got a lot of attention. And then I really dove deep into that, just to really educate people about how you can make a very well-balanced smoothie that can be full of flavor and dimension, like a textured dish. And so that became a real passion of mine, in addition to sharing all the other ways we can use a blender.
I love it. And I love how you were learning and growing as you were doing this yourself, and just continuing to expand on the skills you already had, and then expanding to accommodate the needs of what your audience wanted. And then when you started doing the national tour, etc., your audience grew and people were asking you for more, and you just kept stepping in, even though the imposter syndrome pops up every time for everything. You just kept putting one foot in front of the other and delivering what people were looking for. And so I hear that you have the gift of tasting, and and that, you have yet to take a horrible smoothie and turn it into something incredible. So share that story with the audience, please.
I did multiple national book tours and then international book tours all over the world. And then I, toured with KitchenAid and many other companies, and I worked with Four Seasons and Western Hotels and Whole Foods and all these different companies, around the world. And I met, thousands of people. And everybody was telling me these really funny stories. Everybody wanted to tell me what their smoothie was on tour, even though we were talking about lots of different things. My husband and I, we make this smoothie. What do you think about this blend? And I would just, go, yeah, I like it. Okay, how can we build on it? And it kind of became this game, because everybody was lamenting my smoothies, really, it's really healthy, but it looks like the place where the plants came to die. But we plug our noses because we know it's healthy. And I went, oh, honey, life's too short to drink things that look like a big undrinkable glass of death. So, okay, here's how we're going to fix this. And then at a Williams Sonoma, it kind of became a bit of a game. And then I did it somewhere else. And then I started doing these events where companies would invite me and party, all kinds of things where I would challenge people. I want you to make the most disgusting, ugly, sludgy, revolting smoothie that you can possibly concoct. And of course, everybody loved that challenge because they wanted to stump me and everybody's laughing. It really brought people together. And I'm going to show you how you're going to bring it back from the depths of undrinkable despair. And to this day, there's one smoothie that I cannot resurrect, right? And it's just a simple bag of tricks. And once you understand the basic elements and how you can correct basically. And what I love about smoothies and other blended things is it's kind of like cooking with Goldilocks. It's add a little bit of this, a little bit of that, blend it, taste it until you get it just right. And unlike baking, which is a wonderful art form, where we stick it in the oven and we got to wait, time, and then it's like chemistry, and then we can't change it. Right? It's done and it's dusted, right? With smoothies, we can keep tweaking and adding and tweaking and adding, right? And I really love that that it really levels the playing field in the kitchen. That you don't need to be a professional chef or a genius cook or a super taster or whatever. That anybody can make something healthy with a little bit of time and some desire, to do it. And so for me, I had a lot of children, a lot of teenagers, a lot of novice cooks feeling very empowered by this. And then once you can apply that box of tools to smoothies, you can apply it to lots of other things. So I found it a really effective entree point to helping people gain confidence in the kitchen. And the other thing about blending too is I kind of love this whole, well, what's so great is you can't mess it up because we're blending it anyway, right? So it just made it really accessible. And I think that was one of the big things that captured people's attention in addition to the fabulous flavors.
Yeah. And I love the idea that you mentioned the empowerment in the kitchen. Start with this. Because if you start your day with a smoothie that is full of good nutrition, you are setting yourself up for success for the whole day.
Yeah.
So if you can just master that initially, you know that you're stepping into success, and then you can build on the skills. And so I love that, that's where you were starting to teach kids and teenagers and others who, maybe didn't spend much time in the kitchen. This is a way that you can get into the kitchen and you can do something that's really impactful for yourself each and every day.
And it's just when you can feed yourself and feed other people in your family, you just feel good. So, I mean, we get hundreds of emails a day, but, in the height of the Blender Girl books, when it was one of the top books in the world and things like that, oh, we got some beautiful photos, of little kids with their smoothie, with their little smooth mustache going cheers to me, like this is the smoothie that I made. And like mothers, making some of the green smoothies from the book going, my family's going green, and kids begging, for the Taste Like Ice Cream Kale Shake, which is the most famous recipe in the Blender Girl collection, it does taste like ice cream. But, making it really fun. And getting people excited about eating vegetables. And that continues to this day to be one of the things that still gets me really fired up.
I love it. I love it. So I know something else that gets you fired up is just talking about gut health and having people understand the importance of taking care of their gut health, having gone through that yourself, and the power of juice fasting and raw foods when it comes to looking after your gut.
Yeah. Oh gosh, as you know, Melissa, because this is, a huge crossover point for us and really should be for any health practitioner, the importance of this gut-brain connection and the gut microbiome and better digestive health and how everything stems from your gut health, and how it's tied to your hormones, your metabolism, your blood sugar, everything, So yes, everything that we do at the Decadent Detox and Skinny60 and at the Blender Girl and all of the company, the brands under the big umbrella of my company is it all roads lead back to the gut. And raw foods we know provide the food for the good gut bacteria, and fermented foods, and we're always wanting to get more of that into our life. The thing about raw foods too, in addition to gut health, is they contain enzymes. And when we cook foods, we destroy the enzymes that aid in their digestion, So having some raw foods every day, I'm not a raw foodist, and I actually don't recommend anybody is 100% raw because we need the strengthening effects of some cooked foods. But I do think that the blender really helps people include more raw foods in their life in a very fun, easy way. So whether it's a smoothie, whether it's a cold soup, whether it's a sauce that has vegetables and goodness and healthy fats, like avocado and olive oil in it. I also think that you can do a mixture of raw and blended and cooked foods, where you can have a raw sauce, you can have a dressing, you can have a salad and a cooked element. You can be putting these things together. It's not an either or scenario. It's a both and, that we can have it all. And, certainly one of the mandates in our strategic meal bank plans and programs is making at least one meal a day a raw meal and or having something raw with every cooked meal so that we're getting the benefits of all that hydration, from the raw foods, but also all of those enzymes. And, this, Melissa, that, some nutrients are more easily digestible and absorbable in raw foods and conversely in their cooked format. So we need a bit of both, So I think just continuing to share, that knowledge and educate people about the benefits of that is just going to continue to be a big part of what we both do, right?
Yes. And then with your recipes, people are able to easily incorporate more raw into their diet so that it is fun, that it is edible. It doesn't have to be difficult to do. And I love that.
Yeah, and it's not raw carrot sticks and warped lettuce leaves and celery and chomping on things like, you're a rabbit or something, that we can make it a real culinary adventure. And that's kind of a mandate. I test all my recipes extensively. I have over 50 recipe testers using all kinds of blenders, and I have 2 teenage recipe testers always at any given time, and people from all walks of life and different dietary stripes, just to make sure that these recipes work in all kinds of situations, and then that they're palatable to the majority of people, So it's a very, very strict sort of process that I have to make sure that as long as you read the recipe and measure the ingredients, the recipes are going to turn out every time, So because that really frustrates me with recipe development, where I make a recipe and it doesn't work. And I follow the instructions to the letter, and it happens all the time. I get these emails from lots of people and, working in the food and wellness industry for decades now, you hear these stories, and just for the stuff that we put out into the world, I want to make sure that if you read and follow the instructions, it will work. Because, if you're going to spend your time on something, you want it to work out.
Exactly. And work out as you expect it to work out.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And the other thing, as before we leave that whole raw, is something else that I know we both agree on, and that is chewing your liquids.
Oh, yes.
And we dive into that, and liquids before lunch. So I'm going to let you get into the importance of that for supporting gut health, for supporting energy, etc.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up because it is so important, that old adage of chew your liquids and drink your solids, right? So, as we both know, the first phase of digestion begins in the mouth, particularly for carbohydrates, with the salivary amylase that starts to break down that food into its constituent parts so that we can absorb the nutrients from it. And I think often with liquid foods, whether it be juices, smoothies, soups, whatever it might be, that the natural inclination is to gulp them down and bypass that first phase of digestion, which not only means that we don't absorb things properly, but it can cause a lot of digestive distress, as you pointed out. So, I'm always swishing anything liquid in my mouth to give, those enzymes a chance to get their little teeth into it, and break it down. And I'm always sipping a smoothie over the course of 30 to 60 minutes. So not only does that help to regulate my blood sugar and to prevent those blood sugar spikes and crashes, in addition to formulating a really well-balanced smoothie, right? But it also gives my digestive system time to digest it properly, which reduces the gas and the bloating, which is a very common effect of drinking juices and smoothies, particularly those that contain really high amounts of fruit, right? Which is too much sugar for us to handle at one time. So, we can talk about strategies for how we do that, but it's a really important part of it. So I'm always swishing and consuming those liquid foods slowly, which takes mindfulness, and practice, because it is a natural inclination just to kind of, swig, chug something down, and listen, I'm also guilty of doing this when I'm not paying attention too, right? So, but it really does help to feel better when you're eating these things, these kinds of
Absolutely.
food.
Just like the importance of slowing down when we're actually eating a meal and chewing those mouthfuls more, which that's why we say drink your solids, because we're chewing the mouthful so much that it becomes like a liquid in your mouth.
Yep.
So that
we have to liquefy everything. Everything has to be liquefied in order for the body to utilize it, so absolutely.
So let's talk about that. You mentioned strategies for the smoothie so that it's not all sugar. So you have some top strategies to help improve digestion when it comes to making smoothies. So what are they?
Yeah. So, the basics of a smoothie are three things, right? So we've got a liquid, and sometimes we don't need a liquid if we have really high water content foods like melon, like tomato, if we're doing a savory smoothie, like oranges, things like that become very liquefied very easily. We may not need a liquid.
Right.
We need our base flavor, which is, frozen fruit. It might be avocado. It might be, some pureed vegetables. It depends on what kind of smoothie we're making. And then we need the chill factor, right? So smoothies need to be cold, because otherwise they're soups, which, hey, isn't bad either, right? So there's, crossover there. But I think for a truly sensational smoothie, I have 6 steps. And this was what I was talking about. I taught everybody these 6 steps and continue to do so at events and workshops and things, So the first step is liquid. And this is going to cover not only fabulous flavor, but health benefits like we're talking about. So the liquid could be filtered water, could be coconut water, could be any kind of milks, plant-based milks. And if you consume dairy, it could be that. I'm not big on adding juices to smoothies just because it does bring it up. But sometimes it can be a very effective strategy, just a little bit to lift the flavor if things are getting a little bit murky and weird, or I've got to change the color of something or make it a bit palatable for children, etc. So that can be something.
More of a rescue item rather than a start.
There you go. I love that term. Yeah, a rescue. Or just an accent, right. Or just kind of a supporting player in our, story, But I think there's other liquids that often get overlooked, So herbal teas can bring in the most exquisite flavor, Chamomile tea, peppermint tea, rooibos tea goes so beautifully with cranberry and oranges and things like that, right? Kefir. Any kind of kefir, water kefir, milk kefirs, right? And we can make kefir with plant-based milks, right? Kombucha. I'm not a huge fan of kombucha necessarily unless it's small batch, just because, a lot of it's got a lot of added sugar after the fermentation now, but I think that can still be great. Then the second step is we've got our base, right? So that can be fresh and frozen fruits, pureed vegetables, things like that, right? It can be avocado, it can be coconut meat, it can be things like that, right? Mm-hmm. Then the non-negotiable element of every smoothie is step 3, which is we have to get creamy. I am not drinking something that I've got to chew with my teeth because it's lumpy and crunchy, right? So we want that beautiful silky texture, right? So there's lots of ways we can do that. We can do that with different frozen fruits. We can do it with avocado, a little bit of banana, coconut meat, different yogurts. We can use some raw nuts and seeds like raw cashews, blanched almonds. Sometimes people use a bit of tofu. You can use a little bit of very, very finely milled oats. There's all kinds of strategies there. The creamy element also, to your point, can help us balance the sugars, right? So we're at, often those things are fats, right? So avocado is a healthy fat, coconut, nuts and seeds. That's going to bring in some protein as well as healthy fats, which helps to slow down the assimilation of the sugars of the fruit. And obviously we have natural sugars in vegetables as well. So if I'm using mashed pumpkin, mashed sweet potato, mashed carrots, whilst they're lower in sugar and have built-in blood sugar moderators, they still can, contribute to our daily quota of natural sugar, right? So step 3 is get creamy. Step 4 is go green. So, to your point, that helps to add more nutrition. It also adds a more alkaline forming element to sometimes these more acid forming elements. So it also helps to balance the pH of the smoothie, So I classify greens in mild, medium, and strong greens, So mild greens would be things like spinach, baby bok choy is a really overlooked green for smoothies, right? You cannot taste the flavor in most smoothies. And I think the greatest kept secret in the smoothie making world is radish greens, the tops of red radishes. All right. Often we throw them out, right? Some people saute them and do wonderful things with them, but often they get snipped off and they get thrown in the garbage or the compost. So yes, you've got to rinse them because they contain a lot of grit, but they are fabulous for adding to smoothies and they are so nutrient dense. The tops of things actually in most instances contain more nutrition than the roots, right? Beet greens is another example. I would classify kale, chard, collard greens, beet greens. They're more mid greens heading into strong, right? Where we're going to add a little bit less because otherwise it's going to make it too pungent and earthy. So we're going to remember you can add it, but you can't take it back. So we're always going to add small and add to taste with these things. And then accent greens, which would be our strong greens, which would be things like arugula or rocket, depending on where you live, and dandelion greens, which can really add a really beautiful little note of flavor on the end note and add some more nutrition. But if we add too much, it's going to make it very bitter, right? So that's that. So that's the go green. Then step 5 is we're going to boost. We're going to boost the nutrition. So that's where we would add, our superfood powders, maybe, camu powder. We might add matcha powder. We might add, fresh spirulina, dried chlorella, things like that, right? And again, we're going to add those in very small increments. Other boosters are things like cold pressed oils, like flax oil, hemp oil, sometimes a bit of olive oil, coconut oil, things like that, right? So don't overlook oils where that can, really bring in a really beautiful element. Some people like to use protein powders. I'm not a huge fan of protein powders because I like to add protein to my smoothies with whole foods, not laboratory experiments, right? So that everything but the kitchen sink approach with protein powders, it really causes a lot of digestive distress for the majority of people. And protein powders, unless they're nut and seed based, don't tend to, from a digestive perspective, combine well with fruit and other ingredients. I do think some people like to add protein powder if they, for kids that cannot swallow capsules and things, but you can add that with kefir and, water kefirs and coconut water kefirs and things like that. But it's still a strategy on that good, better, best thing. Mm-hmm. And here's my biggest tip. Is our taste buds are temperature sensitive. So we can't taste the full spectrum of flavors at extremely hot or extremely cold temperatures. So, when you're making a soup and you'd never add a squeeze of lemon juice or a splash of vinegar, the acid to really bring out the flavors, or salt it right as it's boiled off the stove, because often you add too much because you can't fully taste the spectrum of flavors. So you're going to let the soup cool for 15 minutes and then you're going to season and gussy it up, right? Conversely, with smoothies, when they're extremely cold, that phenomenon works for us because it takes the edge off the pungency of beets and other really assertive, murky ingredients and the bitterness off leafy greens. The other thing that it does is that it allows us to add frozen vegetables to smoothies. So you can add frozen raw cauliflower, frozen raw broccoli. I will often use frozen zucchini in the place of ice just to add more nutrition. So when we add frozen vegetables, now if we chomped into a raw, piece of cauliflower or broccoli, that's going to make most people gag. But when we freeze it and we put it in a smoothie, we can't taste it. So, for those of you that have children, grandchildren, veggie phobic adults, and they're just simply not going to eat it if you put it in front of them, put it in a smoothie. And I even, taught my niece and nephew from a very young age. I showed them we're putting it in. So they knew it wasn't a secret.
Right.
Oh, okay. And then it started to become kind of a game, and they were excited that they were getting it in this way where they couldn't taste it. It was kind of like more bang for your buck, right? So that's number 5. And then the final step, number 6, is we add the magic. And this is where we're going to layer our flavors, right? So the front note in a smoothie is pretty easy. We typically lead with that base flavor, comes in at the front, right? I think what most smoothies are lacking is the middle and the end. Now, a lot of people have the end because we would add our ginger, we'd add our cinnamon, we might add, fresh basil, fresh mint, a little bit of coriander or cilantro, a little bit of fresh parsley, some thyme, some rosemary. I mean, I would never add dried herbs to a smoothie, but beautiful fresh herbs in varying quantities. Oh, just divine flavor, So we can use all of that. Citrus zest, a little bit of orange zest, lemon zest, lime zest, a little bit of lemon or lime juice, just a little bit really helps to elevate the flavors. I pretty much always add an acid to every smoothie because acid, helps carry flavors across the palate, just like it does with a textured dish, And I think that often gets overlooked. Extracts, like little splash of almond extract, vanilla extract. There's all kinds of other extracts. And then there's other really creative things like little bit of fresh rose water, orange blossom water, all those kinds of things. And then, of course, I'm not big on adding a huge amount of sweeteners to smoothies, but every once in a while, just a hint of, a little bit of a fresh date, splash of honey if you eat honey, and other things, can support that. A little bit of molasses, or whatever it might be. And then a pinch of salt. I'm always adding a pinch of salt to every single smoothie, just because, again, that holy trinity of flavors, we want the salt, the sweet, and the acid, right? So I think it's about layering. It's about layering, and to me, I want to go on a journey with a smoothie, and I want it to surprise me. I sometimes will put just the tiniest, and I'm talking like half a teaspoon of chopped up red onion, because it brings in a middle. We'll add all kinds of different things. And what I say to people is, when you're making your own smoothies at home, first of all, use my recipes as a guide, because I'm using the same bag of tricks, and that's how you learn as a home cook, right? Like, that chef or that cookbook author did that with that recipe. Oh, I wonder if that would work for me in this. Well, son of a gun, it actually does. Or maybe it doesn't. And that's how you learn, right? Oh, okay, well, and, I think that we can just keep learning, and growing with it, So yeah, just jump in and give it a go. But if you think like, okay, that's what I was saying. If you think about, if you want to replicate, let's say, a pie in a glass smoothie, right? Which are, they're culinary delight smoothies. They might not be the healthiest. They might be higher in sugar, etc., but they're joyful. And we do it sometimes, right? So if you wanted to make an apple pie smoothie or a pumpkin pie or pecan pie, or whatever it is, you just sit down and think about the elements in the actual textured pie. What makes a great apple pie? Right? It's full apple flavor. It's that yummy buttery pastry, it's the spices. It's just the right amount of sweetness, whatever. Okay, so how am I going to get that really rich apple flavor? I might use a little bit of fresh apple, then I might use a little bit of apple sauce to elevate the flavor. Otherwise, it's not going to cut through. How am I going to replicate that pastry flavor? Ooh, okay. Well, I might do a mixture of raw cashews or blanched almonds with a little bit of oats because that's going to bring in that pastry flavor. Oh, I got to have cinnamon. I love apple pie with cinnamon. I might add a bit of ginger, so we just start to kind of put it together, and then we just tweak, blend, taste, and then devour. So yeah, I think that those 6 steps can just be applied to just millions of different flavor combinations.
I love it. I love your passion for it. And you've motivated me to get more creative with the smoothies that I make. And I'm gonna have to check out your recipe books too. So very excited about all of that. And before we get to the end of the podcast, though, I also want you to talk about the more recent work that you're doing with your 60-day reset and your Skinny 60 program and share that with the audience.
Yeah, yeah. So when I was on my book tours and doing my appearances and speaking at things and working with all these people, people were obviously just celebrating and marveling at how much they loved the recipes, and but everybody wanted more nutrition guidance because I did put a lot of nutrition principles that guided my work in my first book, The Blender Girl, and then in The Perfect Blend, my third book. We had chapters based on health goals and recipes to help you support reaching those goals. And people just wanted more. They wanted more guidance. And so even though I've studied nutrition, I'm very knowledgeable about it, I do not have a medical license. And so it was very important to me that when I created my health programs, I did it in consort with a board of doctors and dietitians, but that everyone in my programs is under the care of people with medical licenses, particularly with Skinny 60, because your health is the most important thing, and we want to be treating that with the care and respect that it deserves. So we lead the 60-day reset. I have a team of dietitians, and they all specialize in digestive health and women's health because we have a lot of people coming in with menopause, Hashimoto's, various thyroid conditions, digestive disorders like IBS, Candida, all kinds of things, right? A lot of celiacs, people that are gluten-free, because all of my recipes are gluten-free and vegan, so they're dairy-free, egg-free. The recipes are free of the top allergens and that kind of stuff in many cases. So we really, going back to your point about gut health, it's a gut health reset. And the reason why it's 60 days is that we go through 2 hormonal cycles. And so it's also a good length of time to not only do the digestive reset and improve your gut microbiome, but also a good amount of time to get familiar with the nutrition principles. It's all science-based. And we help each participant figure out how to apply that box of tools and utilize them in a way that's appropriate for their lifestyle and health goals and personality. That's what I love about my dietitians is it's not just about your health goals. It's about what do you love to eat? What's your lifestyle? Are you cooking for yourself at home, or do you have a family? Do you have children or elderly relatives, or what are you a shift worker? All of those things play a role in what are going to be the most effective strategies for you to be able to make this doable and sustainable and most importantly, joyful. So then healthy habits stick. So we like to have that real 60 days with people so that we can get to know you, really help you develop a plan that's going to work for you. And I think that's why people get such extraordinary results in such a short amount of time, and just give people a real box of tools that they're going to be using for the rest of their life to not only achieve better health, but more importantly, to maintain it. Because our needs do change as we get older and we need to be adapting. I think there is a huge difference between healthy eating and strategic eating. So you can be eating all the healthy foods in the world and off the healthy food lists, but if it's not what's appropriate for your needs at this time, it's not strategic. And so we really teach people about strategic eating and that we want to be mindful of our bioindividuality and our uniqueness. And that it's not a one-stop shop and a one-size-fits-all approach. There is no blanket way of moving through the world that works for absolutely everybody. Yes, there are basic nutrition principles, as we've talked about, better gut health, better blood sugar, sleep, managing stress, all that sort of stuff. But in and around those basic parameters, it's a whole delicious world of opportunity and options, right? And so that's why our programs happen live, so that we can really get in there with you and help you find those solutions.
Well, I love the bio-individual aspect of it because, of course, all of our gut microbiomes are as different as our fingerprints.
Yes, it's like a fingerprint. Totally,
Absolutely
totally.
unique to each individual. And what I love even more is it's not just 60 days. It's actually you're creating this for a lifetime for people. They're starting
Yes,
to learn what they need to learn in order to be able to feed themselves in a way that has their body thriving and building new habits that they're able
yes,
to maintain because their
yes,
personality, their lifestyle, etc., is all factored in. And that's why you get the success that you get. It's not just a
yeah,
transaction here, come do my thing for 60 days and then see you later. This is literally changing lives for people. And that's why I love, love, love what you're doing, Tess. So thank you
thank
for that.
you. I love what you said about foundation. You know, if the house has a strong foundation,
Yes.
we can do anything. Once there's a strong
Exactly.
foundation, we can build the walls, we can paint them, we can put a painting up, we can flesh it all out, but we have to have the strong foundation. And yeah, really I could have called it the 60-day kickstart, because it is a kickstart into the rest of your life, and you just build
Yes.
from that really strong foundation.
Then we'd be even more aligned because my programs are called Kickstarts. So there you go.
Yes. I mean, I called my 7-day program a 7-day kickstart,
Yeah.
but I mean, these names are so funny, aren't they? But yeah, I mean, whatever resonates with you. But I mean, it's all about love, right?
It is. It's
Self-love.
love for self and,
Yeah.
the willingness to learn in order to be able to give yourself the foundation. Absolutely. So I have
Yeah.
loved this experience of chatting with you here today, Tess. And I always ask my guests, what does "don't wait for your wake up call" mean to you?
Oh, I love the name of your podcast so much. Can I just say that? To me, life is a love story. And you want to make your life a love story. So everything that you do, the choices that you make, the food that you eat, how you choose to take care of yourself, how you interact with others, the relationships that you choose, the job, the career, always be acting from a place of love and intention about what it is that's going to give you joy and have the best quality of life so that you don't come to those wake up calls, which come in every manifestation of your life. Not just health. It's about relationships, career, everything. So to me, it's about making you the leading person in your story and that it's got to be a love story so that you're already awake.
I absolutely love that. You've given me full body goosebumps as you've shared that. And with that, if people want to work with you, can you let them know how they can get hold of you? And I know you've also very generously offered a free gift that you can share with the audience as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, gosh, I have a lot of websites. So you can go to tessmasters.com, has all of the links to all of my different websites. If you want all these delicious, yummy recipes, you can go to theblendergirl.com. If you're interested in diving in with my dietitians and me, you can go to skinny60.com. And if you just want to do a quick little 14-day, kind of detox with us, we also lead those programs 4 times a year at thedecadentdetox.com. But yeah, everything's under tessmasters.com if you kind of want to just link around from there and go on a little adventure.
Beautiful. And your free gift is 5 easy, healthy dinners cookbook.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that is
Oh
out
gosh.
on the skinny60.com website.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many free, little cookbooks and things. But yeah, there's 5 easy, healthy recipes you can make in 30 minutes, and it just gets you started where you can make a base recipe and then add whatever quality protein that you want, whether it's plant or animal. So I think that's just a really good place to start. And they're just yummy little recipes, and then you can sort of choose your own adventure with them.
Beautiful. So I have all of that in the show notes. And as we wrap up, is there any last thing that you would like to share with the audience?
Oh, just go after what you want. And I loved what we were talking about on my podcast, as it has to be me, is that's become really the overarching part of everything that I do is recognizing what is yours to hold and what isn't and going after it. You know, what are your it has to be me moments where you go, it has to be me to do this. I'm going after it. You know, life is not a dress rehearsal. It happens now, you know, and we create the story. It doesn't get bestowed on us, you know. So we have the power, and you're in control of your own story. So make it an amazing one.
Do that. And we have just done the podcast swap, as you have said. So I am
It's so much fun.
episode 39 of the It Has to Be Me podcast with Tess Masters. And this is episode 204 of the Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call podcast. So
I'm in awe of you and how many episodes you've done. Oh, you're blazing the trail.
So thank you so much for being here on this episode today and sharing all of your wisdom. I know I got a lot out of it, and I know my audience will have as well. And more people are going to be focused on amazing smoothies and even more focused on their health, because without it, what have you got? So thank you, Tess, for being here. Thank you to my audience for tuning in each and every week. I appreciate you being here. Are you a practitioner or a coach listening to this? If so, I would love to ask you, do you use hypnotherapy in your practice working with clients? And if not, would you like to? The power of hypnotherapy is limitless. And so often we experience our clients struggling to reach their goals. It's because they're coming up against their own brick walls and getting stuck. But you can help them through the power of hypnosis break through all of that, working with their unconscious mind to put the suggestions in, to have them taking the action to achieve the results that they want. They are thrilled with your coaching techniques. They're getting the results they want. You feel amazing because you are helping your client get the results they want. It's a win-win. And another win is that it's an added revenue stream for you in your business. So if you like the feel of helping your clients get the results they want, if you like the sound of that, then definitely reach out, Melissa at yourguidedhealthjourney.com, or click the Linktree link below for my Unlimited Power of Hypnosis class to learn more. It's a weekend designation program that I teach, valid in 42 countries. You write an exam after taking the experiential course, and you can be admitted to the American Board of Hypnotherapy and start using hypnotherapy one-to-one with your clients and have them achieving the results they want.